A government shutdown looms as Democrats crow they have the votes to stop a Republican stopgap spending bill now in the House. Is peace possible on the Korea Peninsula? One noted expert says all we need to do now is give peace a chance. At least 5 Democrats say they will boycott the president's State of the Union. One Republican says he wants to invite veterans to fill those empty seats. All of that and more coming up on Newsmax Now, which starts right now. Hello and welcome to another 2-hour version of Newsmax Now. This we call the Thursday edition. As always, we encourage you to participate. Please give us a call. The number is 1-877-NEWSMAX. That is 877-639-7629. We encourage you to call. We'll work you into the show. Call us. Throw your 2 cents on the table. Comment on what we're talking about. Now let's start with our top story of the day. President Trump warned of the devastating consequences of a government shutdown as he told reporters that the government, could very well shut down on Friday. The blame game is on as each side seems to be blaming the other. Trump saying the Democrats want to shut down to take the focus away from a successful tax plan. And in the event of a shutdown, federal employees for agencies considered non-essential are ordered to stay home until a budget deal is struck, at which point they are paid retroactively. The most recent shutdowns, 95, 96, and 2013, saw some 800,000 workers furloughed per day. So what does that mean? How could it affect you? Well, we went out on the street and we asked you. Here's what you had to say.
I don't think so. I live here, but I guess it doesn't affect my taxes. That's the main thing I'd care about. So yeah, I don't think it would affect me.
Oh. How? I mean, I don't think in the immediate, day to day, it kind of sucks when you think about like all the other offices closing down. But for me, probably not going to change much day to day.
I don't think it will affect us personally, but it's a sad situation.
It would make me laugh because it's all we can ever do.
No, it would not. But I'm fortunate in that regard because I'm not dependent on the government.
No, not really mine, but I mean, I'm concerned for many people that it will affect.
I'm not going to any national parks anytime soon, but otherwise, I'm not sure. I don't think so.
There doesn't seem to be too much concern out there on the streets in New York, but should they be? Well, with me for full 2 hours today to explore that topic and so many more is the author of Trumpitude, author Ellis Henican. It's good to see you.
Hey, sometimes what you don't know can hurt you. Do you realize that? You may not think you need this federal government, but you just try doing without it for a little while. We can joke about this, but I do want to say this in all seriousness. We'll talk about whether it's matter or not, but if you're dependent on a Social Security check, you're still going to get it, okay? Good
I mean,
news.
That will be there.
And let's hope if you're going on an airplane flight, those air traffic controllers are going to be there as well.
I think they're deemed essential.
I hope so. And the military, too.
Yeah, exactly. 80% of the government actually would show up for work. 80% of the employees are deemed essential employees. Only that 20% fall on that unfortunate category of non-essential. Although they probably don't feel that way. Joining us now to talk about our top stories is the Executive Director of America Rising, PAC, Alexandra Smith. She's the former chairman of the College National Republican Committee. Alexandra, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, let's start where Ellis and I were just talking. It does appear that the probability of a government shutdown is much greater than either he or I would have handicapped it at yesterday. Should people be concerned? You heard out here on the streets of New York, not so much on their part, but are they wrong?
Well, I mean, look, I hope that Republicans and Democrats can come together to strike a compromise before this deadline hits. I know that this is certainly something that's important to the president, and it's something that Republican lawmakers have been working towards. Unfortunately, I think with Democrats, we're seeing that there's just a hardline position that's preventing anyone from coming to the table. And I think that it's pretty hypocritical given their past statements during the 2013 shutdown when you remember that the shoe was on the other foot.
Well, Alexander, I understand you're trying to cast blame on the Democrats for a government they don't run, but let me just point out a couple of facts and get you to react to them as well. The Republicans control the presidency. They control both houses of the Congress. They have a very sympathetic Supreme Court. Can't they keep the government open? Why do they even need the Democrats?
Well, I have some facts for you. And the fact is that there's a diversity in the Republican Party the Democrats simply do not share. Republicans don't vote in lockstep behind any one person, whereas Democrats continually vote in lockstep behind Nancy Pelosi, behind Senator Chuck Schumer. And this is really going to come back to haunt them come the 2018 midterms, particularly when we're talking about the 10 Democratic senators who are up in states that the president won. 5 of those states he won by double digits. What people said in 2016 is that they were tired of politics as usual on both sides. They weren't just talking about Democrats, they were talking about Republicans too. So the fact that Democrats won't come to the table to deal on this is really disappointing. I mean, the fact is that, yes, we do have holdouts in the Republican caucus, but that shows our diversity. The fact that not one of these Democrats will cross the aisle, I think, is more telling about you than it is us.
It is interesting. I mean, I personally, I'm amused right now because it's going to be Saturday. There aren't too many government workers.
2 free days, baby. 2 free days. That's all.
Sunday. It's not like a big deal on this situation. I want to go to a topic that's got a lot of heat this morning. It was reported that Trump was furious, in quotes, with White House Chief of Staff John Kelly after Kelly told a group of Democratic lawmakers that some of Trump's campaign promises on immigration were uninformed. Okay, let's hear what he had to say.
And I pointed out to all of the members that were in the room that they all say things during the course of campaigns that may or may not be fully informed. So he has evolved in the way he's looked at things. Campaign to governing are 2 different things, and this president is very, very flexible in terms of what is within the realm of the possible.
Well, Bill, you never want to say that the president is actually learning on the job. That you must never say that, General Kelly.
But you know what, Alexander? I think seriously, I think you have to say he's learning on the job because he was not a politician. He's never been one before. That's not a secret. And there is a massive difference, Ellis, between like running for an office and actually having to govern. But what say you, Alexandra?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that these are just sort of semantics. I think that was generally what General Kelly intended to say, which is that, upon coming into office, the president was naturally briefed and on the issues in a more in-depth way than he would have been on the campaign. So I think it's just kind of a little bit of Washington intrigue, but it doesn't change the fact that, the president is obviously advocating for strong borders. He's conditioning a lot of things on that. And I think that most Americans don't find that to be so unreasonable as, elites on the left would like to think.
Well, no, it's not that, but I'm going to go back to Ellis's point. I mean, this is a man who hasn't been, Ellis, a politician. Yeah. So he steps into the office. He has to learn. I don't understand. I know what you're saying in terms of John Kelly saying that on TV, but I think it's an honest statement.
Bill, I could not agree with you more. In fact, every single day I wake up and I hope, I pray that the president's going to start learning. But it seems to me that a big part of the dysfunction in this administration, and yes, there is a lot of dysfunction, guys, whether you see it or not, is that this is not a president who is willing, who is curious, who is open, who is concerned about these policy matters. He has his own emotional instincts, and he's sticking with them. He's sticking with them, my man.
I disagree with you on that, only because he comes to this, and Alexander will weigh in on this. This is a guy with a business background. He thinks he can go in and negotiate like he would in a business negotiation deal. Business negotiations, I think, from my experience, are very different from political negotiations. Well, what say you, Alexander?
I think they are. I think back to tax reform when lawmakers up on Capitol Hill were proposing different solutions. Those solutions were coming out. And, for example, the president, tweeted that there would be no changes to 401ks, which was something which was an idea that had been on the table. So then the idea got taken off the table. And I think that it just shows that, there's a back and forth that's taking place on social media, which is different, but it's kind of refreshing in some ways. It seems to be a more transparent way of governing and talking to each other. And I think that, this is really just more symptomatic of the way the president communicates that's unique to him.
The only observation I'll add here, and Ellis, you can jump on this, is that I think his base loves this. I think what's in the play here is the independents who voted for him. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the independents love it as well. What say you?
Well, Bill, one of the truths that Donald Donald Trump spoke is that he could shoot somebody in Fifth Avenue and that base would not abandon him. But let me tell you, I do think if we're going to have an experiment with an amateur president, which it seems to be kind of where we are, I would like an amateur who is at least open to learning new things. And here we are 1 year in, and I got to tell you, he doesn't seem to have learned anything. In fact, he might have forgotten some things he used to know.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right, Ellis. I remember how open to learning that President Obama was. So I remember that as well.
Right. What about ism?
What about? Well, you're the one who's done.
What about Herbert Hoover? Come on.
I like the way you try and deflect on that. But let's go to something more interesting here. A Political Morning Consult poll shows even if Oprah Winfrey ran for president right now.
And it's here with every woman who chooses to say, "Me too."
I'm sorry, she jumped right in there. I didn't mean to interrupt her. I didn't know she was going to talk.
Do not interrupt Oprah.
But I'm not going to get on that boat. No way. But the poll showed that if Oprah Winfrey ran for president right now, she would lead Trump by 2 percentage points in a head-to-head matchup, 40 to 38%. But what's interesting is, or just as interesting, is Democratic voters actually prefer her to some of the party's potential 2020 candidates. She would lead, for example, Elizabeth Warren in a head-to-head matchup, 39 to 35%. She would also have a big lead over New York Senator Kristen Gillibrand, 44 to 23%. So, guys, and Alexandra, you're up first. Does this poll say anything about the state of politics today?
I think it sure said something about the state of the Democratic Party. The fact that,
I don't think we weren't the ones who just elected a TV star to be president.
I mean, the fact is that the Democrats are sort of touting the fact that they're going to have so many people running in 2020, that they have this like diversity of characters that's running. And at the end of the day, none of them is particularly appealing to the Democratic base, even the ones that are lurching to the far left. I mean, we know that,
it's got to be interesting. And Alexander, I want to interrupt you because John from Maryland's on the phone. John, we have very little time left here. Appreciate the call. So what's on your mind?
Hello?
Yeah, John, ignore what you hear in the background because we're on delay unless you want to turn down real fast. But we have very little time. What's on your mind? What do you want to say?
I'm 77 years old. I've lived through a lot of shutdowns. I know when Obama was president, they were dedicating the World War II memorial. And the Obama administration had the Park Service put bicycle racks blocking people from going in there. At the same time, there were groups that were bringing in World War II veterans because they were dying off every day, so they could come and see this memorial to their great service. And I just thought it was so despicable. But as far as the shutdown, essential services, essential employees aren't affected by that. The checks will still go out.
It's true.
We're not going to lose our credit rating.
Yeah, no, it's really not. Yeah, we've got a bunch of other callers. I got to ask you to wait though, because we got a bid farewell to Executive Director of America Rising PAC, Alexandra Smith. Alexandra, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate your time today. Keep the calls. You bet. This has been fun so far. I don't know if I'm going to live through the rest of the hour here with Ellis. I don't know. Coming up, former federal prosecutor Andrew McCarthy after this quick break. Keep calling. We'll get to you, promise.